Duane got all the green lights. He got all the green lights on all of his driving today. So Duane is going to be joining us early. He's ready to go. So
let's do it.
All right. So we bring in for the first time the SDH debut of Duane Rollins from 24th Minute. Duane, thanks for coming on.
No problem. Nice to be here.
How was training this morning?
My training, this is rest day for me, so I'm pretty good today. I did 7 miles yesterday on the trails and about 30 on the bike. So yeah.
So it's John, Jarrett, and you. And the reason that I wanted to bring you on, and I admit, subscriber, hand over my heart, hand in the air, because I've got to keep abreast as to what's going on north of the border. You had one of your columns came out recently about what's going on at CF Montreal. And I wanted to talk to you about that. I wanted to talk to you about Toronto FC. I wanted to talk to you about the Canadian men's national team. And we'll try to do it all in about 15 minutes. The name that you floated, I guess, actually from the more local perspective than those of us here at SDH, how would you characterize what in the wide world of sports is going on at CF Montreal?
Well, it's Joey Saputo in a word. I mean, look, I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan. I apologize for that, but I mean, it's been a long time, so I don't think I have to apologize for much anymore. Jerry Jones is very familiar to me. Joey Saputo is MLS's version of that. He's meddling. He thinks he knows more than what he does. He tends to alienate. Now, I think in Jerry's case, as he gets older, he's getting a little less meddling. So hopefully for Montreal, that happens to them. But Joey's still very much active. And once his personality sort of kicks in, they can often lead to a lot of turmoil and turnover there.
And one more for me. And you mentioned an interesting name to who should be the new head coach at CF Montreal, and Bobby Smirniotis. For those that don't know who he is and what he means to Canadian soccer, break that down for folks.
First off, he's got the best beard in soccer. If you've seen him, he's a spectacular beard, and I'm a bearded man, so I do like that. But to be serious, he's he's not probably, but he's the most successful coach in the Canadian Premier League, which is in its 5th season for GFC, which is based out of Hamilton, Ontario. They've won 4 of the first 5 titles in that league. Beyond that, Bobby has created a pathway of players that have produced Kyle Lauren, players of that stature. Like he's been very successful in bringing players through that program. Richie Lorea is another name that came through the Sigma FC is the name of their academy side of things. And he's just a guy that knows how to sort of take talent and rise them through a pyramid into a top level. And I think for Montreal and the system that they're running there, where they want to be a little bit less spenders and more developers, that might be a perfect fit for them. Now, it's Quebec. There's politics involved with that. The French side of things needs to be addressed. I'm not entirely familiar in Bobby's French abilities. I've been told he has been taking French lessons, but that's always an issue. But other than that, it's really a good fit, unless Bobby doesn't want it for the reasons that we spoke of off the top.
Jared Smith for Duane Rollins, go.
As far as not just Montreal, but also Toronto up there, I know of the 3 teams in MLS who exist north of the border, it feels like Vancouver is the one that's kind of moving in positive momentum, although Toronto, it felt like kind of at the end of the year, it was just like, let's get through this and start rebuilding. What's the offseason look like for Toronto after what was disappointing in 2023?
Disappointing doesn't do it justice.
I was trying to be polite, but we can.
Yeah. I mean, it was a cluster, up here this year. Look, they made a big swing. I'll say this about TFC and MLSE, the ownership group there. They are always willing to spend. They are always willing to take big swings. And when you take a big swing, you strike out sometimes. And they clearly did with the 2 Italian DPs. Insigne, Bernardeschi, they just didn't seem like I hate to use that they aren't trying thing because I'm not a mind reader. I don't know. But the body language from the get-go did not read positively to those looking at it. They just didn't seem to really be doing much more than mercenary work up here. And it shows in the results. If you miss on your DPs, if you miss on a DP, you're going to struggle in Major League Soccer. If you miss on 2, you're screwed. And then the third one, their third DP in Toronto's Jonathan Rosario was a great kind of TAM level player, but that was more of a bookkeeping issue that they did there. So essentially TFC, even though they had the highest spend in the league, weren't really working with an effective DP. So the first thing they need to do in 2024 is they need to figure out what happens there. And until they know what's going on with the two Italian guys, whether they can sell one of them, if they can sell one of them, they can buy the other one out using the single buyout, then they could really start a rebuild. The problem is that they have so many bad contracts, so many players that are back under contract for 2024 that John Herdman's got a lot of work on his hands. Now, one thing I'll say about John Herdman, I've covered him for more than a decade. Got to know him quite well when he was coaching the women's team back in the early 10s. He is very good at taking broken things and fixing them. I don't know whether John Herdman is good at taking the fixed things and making them the next level. And that's something he's never stuck around for. But right now, what TFC needs is fixing. So that's probably if you're going to lay hope for TFC, it's that they've got a fixer in. They've got a guy that's proven that he can, mend personalities, sort of fix toxic environments and bring teams back together and combine that with MLSE's ability to spend. And then they're willing to buy out a Bernadetsky, because not a lot of Major League Soccer teams would be willing to spend that kind of money, but MLSE has shown that it would. Then they might be able to get it back on the right track. But you're really looking at 2024, I think, in Toronto as a true teardown season, not even a rebuild yet. More of a, let's get this thing torn down, get rid of the contracts, figure out who wants to be here, and then move forward. But it doesn't look very promising right now. And unless you lay your cards on John Herdman fixing it all instantly, then you're going to be in trouble.
I was going to say, Duane Rollins at 24th minute on the 280-character app, hanging out with us here on Friday here on SDH. I was going to ask, how much of a leash is he going to get, and how much patience is there going to be from the outside looking in, knowing that this teardown has to take place?
There'll be no patience from the fans. I can tell you that. Their patience is worn thin. I mean, maybe that's unfair. Maybe that says something about Toronto fans in general. I mean, they won a championship in 2017, which wasn't that long ago, but it's been a mess since. And the pandemic hit us a bit differently up here too, in the sense that those teams were isolated from us longer than they were in the American market. So they kind of lost touch with their fan base for a couple of years and lost their way. It's really hard to explain beyond that the pandemic really did hurt TFC's momentum in the market. So that's why they went with the big splash with the two Italian guys. And if you don't know, Toronto's got a huge Italian population here. So that's why they went that route. In terms of internally, one of the big questions we have is how much influence does Bill Manning, the president, have? A lot of people have felt since he won a power battle against Tim Bezbachenko and Greg Vanny and kind of pushed them out, the three guys that were involved in the championship team, Manning has had most of the personnel decisions and the big ones in the VPs. Is he willing to step aside and let John Herdman do that? We don't know these questions yet. You would think that John Herdman would have demanded that would have wanted that. Then again, a nice paycheck can smooth over a lot of demands that one has, and MLSE probably is paying the man quite well. So there's that. But yeah, there's a lot of questions here. How much Manning has, whether Manning's still around. MLSE is a big, multi-sport business, and the football team, the football team, the Argonauts had quite a good season there and turned it around business size. He's in charge of that, so he maybe not have as much job insecurity as we might hope or think. And from a TFC standpoint, it's a mess. This team they won the wooden spoon deservedly, and they have basically the same team coming back contract wise. So who knows?
Jared, go for it.
I actually wanted to ask you about somebody who you would know very well, who just landed a job in Colorado as well, with Chris Armas taking over that project, which is its own mess out there in Colorado, going from the field up through the fans, up through the academy, everything. I wanted to get your thoughts on Armas taking over that project, considering the time he did in Toronto. It never, at least from our point of view, it never felt like a great fit, and then it didn't last, obviously.
Yeah, that one was a bit of a disaster. That's the start of when I talked about things starting to spin out of control. It was really that higher. Now, the thing I'll say about Armas's time in Toronto is it was very much to use a cliche, it was the round hole square peg thing up here, that they were trying to force a system into a high pressing system, high energy system on an older team that was more geared towards something a little more possession based. And once Armas left, they instantly had success, or more success anyway. And they ultimately had a failed season that year. But so I don't know how good of a view I have on Armas as a coach because of his 11 games at TFC were so bad. We found him a little bit inflexible here in terms of his tactics. He was unwilling to sort of adjust on the fly when it was clearly not working. Now, whether that was coming from Manning, we'll maybe never know. So I have doubts about his ability to make something work in Colorado. But as you alluded to there, I mean, Colorado's got all the problems that we just mentioned about Toronto, but then an ownership that won't spend either. So you've got a lot of issues there. And it's too bad because that's a market that really you'd want to be better in. But they're, do I think Chris Armas is going to be successful in Colorado? If I have to give you an answer short right now, it's no, I don't. And I think that maybe he's a coach that, and I gathered this when he was here, the coach that might be just better as an assistant. And that's not a knock on him. It's just his skill sets might be more geared towards that. The players do seem to like him, the ones that he, especially younger players, but to run a whole program is not something that he's been particularly successful at. You go way back, even his time in New York. Yeah, he has a supporter shield on his Wikipedia page there, but that was Jesse Marsh who won that supporter shield. He just sort of kicked it over the line. And then since then, it's been less than successful.
How would you view Bob Bradley's legacy at Toronto?
Confused. The Manning question hangs over everything. I am much more maybe apologetic, my critics would say, towards Bob Bradley than others would be. I don't think he ever had full control over the roster. I've been told by people inside that are in a position to know that he did not want the Italian DPs, that was not the direction he wanted to go. He was saddled with contracts that then sort of handicapped him in different ways. Now, he made mistakes too with the guys he brought in. He's maybe a little too loyal with folks that he's used in the past that are a little on an age now, and that sort of has compounded the issues in Toronto. I would have given him the rest of this year. I don't think they needed to remove him at the time they did. Certainly the results this year, when you look at pre-Bradley and post-Bradley, I mean, they were an absolute disaster post when all the structure was taken away. I think Bob Bradley is a guy that does a real good job at building things up, similar to Herdman in terms of that. His ability to put a tactical plan in place and execute it was proven at LAFC. Now, same with Herdman. Someone else kicked that over the line too. So we don't know what job. He's doing great right now in Scandinavia again. He's having a good time over there. So I think he's happy to be out too. But in terms of his time in Toronto, like the big question here, I've said his name a bunch of times. I'll say it again. The question here is Bill Manning and how much influence he has and whether he deserves to still have that influence is what hangs over everything here.
Jarrett, go for it.
Yeah, and then I guess getting back to we've talked about, taking over the Toronto team with Hertman. What does it look like going forward from you being up there with Canada's national team? With him making that step away, you've had the success of getting to the World Cup, going in there and, bare knuckle brawling with teams at times through the group stage. What does it look like for Canada right now going forward?
Yeah, look, Alphonso Davies and Jonathan David are still going to be playing for several years at a high level. So ultimately, when it comes to international football, you got two guys like that. You're going to be competitive. You're going to be competitive in CONCACAF, and of course, they have a World Cup berth in 2026. Now, what they can do at the world stage, I was a person who said after the World Cup that maybe it would have been for the best that Canada start to look in a different direction because Herdman maybe have taken them to as far as he could. Tactically at the World Cup, there were some questions. What he did in that Croatia game was a bit suicidal, to be frank, particularly after they get the early goal, get the lead, for them to not be a little bit more pragmatic in that situation for the result. It eliminated them that day. They were the first team eliminated from the World Cup, and it sort of took a lot of the oxygen out. But as you say, the other two games, for sure, they were very competitive in them. They, take a Morocco team that proven to be much better than people thought to close to a result in that one. Siba Hutchinson's header goes off the bar goes under the bar rather than off it. And we're talking about a result against a team that goes to the semifinal. They obviously take Belgium, they probably deserve to win against the Belgium. So they have a decent World Cup performance-wise, not result-wise. There's not a lot of countries in the world where you go 0-for-3 in a World Cup and keep your job. John Herdman does because Canada's not a lot of countries. He chooses to move on. there's an opportunity there. And then you get into the question about whether the CSA, the Canadian Soccer Association, is willing to spend the money or to do what's needed to try and take that program to the next level. There's huge fights between the federation and the players right now, both the men's and the women's side. Some suggestion that the women's side's about to get resolved, but the men's side's still not happy with their contract for the World Cup. They still haven't been paid their bonuses yet because they haven't got a deal in place. There's a lot of factors at play there. There's this Canadian soccer business deal, which is similar to SUM. If in the States, it's kind of the same idea. Not a lot of people understand that up here, so it's causing a lot of controversy, particularly among non-soccer media, that they don't know what the hell this thing is, so they just immediately dismiss its value, and its value is that it props up the Canadian Premier League. But nonetheless, it's complicated. It would take an hour of me to describe all this stuff. But what's my hope with the Canadian national team right now? As I said, the top end talent is such that they still should be good enough to be winning in CONCACAF. They have Jamaica up here. They're in Jamaica tonight. That's a result to get to Copa America, which is an absolute necessity. They should have enough talent to get through that tie, particularly with the home leg up here in Toronto on Tuesday when it's supposed to be 32 Fahrenheit on the day. The Jamaicans aren't going to like that too much.
No, they're not. No. Since you stole the last question from me asking about today and Tuesday, go ahead and hit the promo for me for those that should be keeping an eye on your work. How do they do it? Must follow, must subscribe. So let folks know how they can.
I'm at 24th minute, as you see on my label there. If you're watching on YouTube, you can find me on all social media platforms. All of them basically. Facebook, I'm not really active on, so you don't need to worry about that one. But that's the easiest way. I promote everything. The Substack is at 24th minute as well. So all my writing goes through Substack. I also have a podcast which is focused on the developmental side of the game up here in Canada called Next Pod Soccer Podcast. You can search for that on any podcast catcher right there, and you'll find it. Myself and James Grossi. James Grossi works for TrontofC.ca, so he's great. Really knows his development stuff.
And I'm glad that you said that the CSA-CSB discussion would take another hour, because it would, and that's why I kind of left it to the side, knowing it would be its own entity to save for later on when folks have negotiations and they get close to signing on the bottom line. Duane, thanks for making your premiere here on SDH on a Wild Friday, and thanks for the education. We'll be catching up soon, my friend.
Cheers. Anytime.